As we consider the outcome of the vote here, obviously, without knowing it at this time, we are looking ahead to next week when the Republican conference in the House will be having leadership elections. Congresswoman, how could the architecture of Republican leadership look different if it's the majority still or becomes the minority? What happens to Speaker Mike Johnson, for example?
So look, if we have the majority, I believe all of our leadership stays in place. If you're in the minority, then you lose a spot. And then that may be some shuffling that you would see going on. But I think that we're on track to keep the majority and expand our majority. I think it will be a small expansion of the majority, but we will keep the majority nonetheless, because people know that we're the ones who did the work, right? We passed legislation to actually secure the border, to reverse the anti-energy policies that have driven up inflation, the cost of food and energy in America. We're the ones who have been the ones that have really put a check into government spending. No more of these crazy omnibus massive bills that added trillions when the Democrats had control in the first 2 years. So I think that people want to see a balance, and particularly here in New York, and having a House majority does give us some sense of balance when we have Democrats controlling everything from the city council to the state legislature to all 4 spots in our statewide office.
If you keep your majority in the House, Congresswoman, and Mike Johnson remains your speaker, presumably in that world, would you work to repeal the CHIPS Act that was passed and pushed by the Biden administration, later passed by Congress?
Yeah, so the CHIPS Act had some issues with it. I don't think it needs to be repealed. I think it could be adjusted to make sure that all of the incentives are being used here in the United States. And one of the other issues with the inflation, they called it the Inflation Reduction Act. We called it the Inflation Expansion Act. That bill also gave a lot of incentives that ended up in communist China for EV batteries, and then subsidized slave labor and child labor in the Congo. So I think there needs to be some adjustments to make sure that these things are actually being made here in the United States. I have similar legislation to the CHIPS Act that would incentivize production of pharmaceuticals here in the United States, which we desperately need because 80% of our pharmaceutical ingredients are coming from communist China and overseas. So I think the incentives to bring chips and all those sensitive supply chains home is important. If we can alter the legislation to make it better, then we should look at that. But certainly, I want to see these products being made here in the United States.